In Karmic Astrology, we typically read our past life experiences and then interpret how does that affect us in a present life. But there is an even bigger question, and this is, how do we actually create our karma? What do we do in order to get certain situations in our life? I know that you may say, yeah, whatever you do, you will get as a result there. And this is fine, but tell me, what kind of action do you need to do in order to win a lottery? Or what type of karma caused someone perish in a snow avalanche or anything like that? So how do things are interconnected? This is certainly that any kind of action will have its own consequence, but we want to learn and understand more of that process. How do we actually cause all the events that are coming to us in this life? So how did we cause that in some previous life? So what did we do? What is the connection? And I think it's very important and very significant for us to understand that thing. Everything starts from our wheel of karma. Wheel of karma represents the wheel of destiny that actually moves all of our actions going around the zodiac circle. If we start from the first house that represents the ascendant, and it's our present incarnation, so everything starts from that house. So that's how we experience life here. But the primary need for any being here on earth is to survive. So the way how we survive is the way how we actually create the karma and we run the wheel of destiny. So how do we do that? So the first house always moves toward the second. Second house represents food. Second house represents all material values that we have, and we are attached to that. And the second house is the matter. And this planet Earth is truly connected with the sign of Taurus, meaning matter, meaning we learn here as a spirit how to live through matter, how to experience the material life with all the senses. So this is our way of actually turning that wheel of destiny. That means that whatever is nowadays our second house, it is going to become our first house in the next life, because we connect with that house. We literally start experiencing the life from what we have, how we attached to things. So if we attach to all the life, all the things that are happening very strongly, okay, this is one way that actually takes us to come back. And the second house represents also the house of all the desires, because we have desires coming from the Venus, and the second house is naturally ruled by Venus. So we are attached to these things, so we come to them. But the way how we attach actually creates the karma. Nowadays, second house is tomorrow's first. But if we are looking from that viewpoint, we can easily understand that actually whole house system would turn. And that means that whatever we have now as the 8th house is going to be a 7, because the 7th house is just across the first always. So if you take the second house being the first in the next life, the 8th house is the 7th. And like that, all the other angles, we get the 9th house, 10th house, all these houses. Then we get 4th, 5th, 6th house, 11th, 12th, and all the other houses are there. Basically, we get like a new chart, and this is how it goes from one life to another. So we want to see the connection with that, like what kind of action in one life we perform so that we get certain result in the next one. Basically, the energy that we put in certain house will transform in a similar quality relating to the corresponding house in the next life. For example, let's start from the 8th house. Let's start from the other side. Whatever we put nowadays in the 8th house, and this is something that will become a 7th house in the next life. 8th house nowadays would represent need sometimes to have conflicts. This is very usually that. This is the house where we have our sexuality. This is sometimes the house that we have a tendency to reject things and people. But out of these energies, we are going to create our next partner, our next seventh house. It's very interesting to learn how we actually need to be very gentle toward the things that we don't understand. If we start rejecting them strongly, well, do not expect very good relationships in the next life, because whatever we do now is reflecting tomorrow. Let's just check, how do we actually get a good 8th house? How do we get a good 8th house in the next life? So whatever the 8th house could mean for us, it depends on how do we actually perform with our 9th house nowadays. So 9th house becomes the 8th house tomorrow. Do we have any purpose in life? Do we really see the greater picture in life? If we can understand the greater picture, the 8th house becomes better. But if we do not, if we are actually lacking totally to understand the greater picture of life, the purpose, if we don't develop the 9th house nicely, the 8th house is going to become a very uneasy house for us next life. So this is the way how people die, but also the 8th house is the house of wealth and all that. If we want to really have wealth, we need to have a greater visions. We need really to put like a Jupiter nowadays in the 9th house, like really having a great ideas, great visions that we are really living up to them. And this is the energy, this is the quality that will form tomorrow's 8th house. With that quality, we just get all the support from the 8th house, and the wealth can be one result of it, but there are others. So this is just the principle. How to get actually the great purpose in life, how to develop the good 9th house. It depends on how we do with the 10th house in a previous life. So in this life, if you do very well with the 10th house, we'll create great 9th house in the next life. So this is the connection between those two. So what does it mean? 10th house nowadays represents responsibility. Do we accept responsibility? Are we capable of doing that? We are responsible. We take that action as us. We do not blame others. So this is like the most important lesson that we do with that. And if we know how to deal with this thing, we are literally helping ourselves to develop greater sense of purpose in the next life. But I want to tell you one thing. Lives are not so different one from another. They might be, but we have a great chance to actually integrate them and to actually have cause and effect even now, even in one life. But the very basic principle goes, one action is causing certain reaction in the house that is corresponding to that action in the next life. Whatever we do nowadays in the 10th house would influence the result in the 9th house in next life, in the area most likely of our purpose and anything that the 9th house could give us. So the question is, what do we need to do nowadays to have a good career in the future life? How to create that? Let's focus to 11th house, to the 11th. 11th house represents the house of doing some voluntary work. Let's focus to that. Let's be good to some people. We don't have to charge for anything we do. We can make some things that are good for others. So some people might say, oh, you're doing that for general good, but you're not capable of making anything for yourself. But I'm telling you, don't worry. You just do that and you will have a quality of the 10th house. And if your consciousness is really developed, if you're really developed in that, you will have that even in this life. But in any case, that action, which is nowadays 11th house, will be reflected on tomorrow's 10th house. Whatever we do with our friends will reflect to some people who are our boss or whoever represents some authority who can support us, or maybe not. So, but whatever we do for general good will give us a generally good fate, generally good destiny, something that is above us and which would actually direct our fate in that life. This is very important. 10th house is really one of the most important houses to have developed because it supports us strongly. How do we create good friends? How do we make good 11th house, good society for us, our friends, let's say like this, or good chances in life, whatever 11th house represents now? It all depends on how do we relate to our 12th house nowadays. If we have, let's say, good inner relationship, we are very honest to ourselves, spiritually honest, we never cheat, we develop that peaceful relationship within us and create the trust in us. That's what we can reflect with our friends. Our friends are going to be like that. We are creating them. Any action in the 12th house will create a certain reaction in the 11th tomorrow. If we are full of fears here, if we hide something, do not expect your friends to be very honest to you, because this, whatever you do nowadays in your 12th house and you think you're hiding something, you're cheating something, it will reflect in your friends. They will be like that. So this is how things are created. We do create that. How about to get a good 12th house? How do we actually develop that good spirituality, that quality of it? It depends on our first house nowadays, because whatever is nowadays the first house, just understand tomorrow is going to be your 12th house. What is the key for it? We need to learn to be very close to ourselves, to accept ourselves totally, to have a good relationship, good feeling with us. If we are under stress nowadays too much, so this is going to be reflected in the 12th house. So the 12th house is going to be under stress. So that means your psychological state is going to be unstable, full of fears and all other stuff. But if you can make yourself stable, like peaceful, like really good, if you can accept yourself totally now, that's what you can expect to have in a next life as your state of inner calmness or your spirituality. You're open to something or whatever. So the quality of your energy today creates your spirituality tomorrow. But the question now is, how do we create our personal, feel our physical body, our incarnation to be good, to be incarnated as a happy, healthy person? As we know, our second house is becoming the first in the next life. So the second house is what? The second house is the matter that we attach to. So the way how we attach to the matter is the one who we become. You know, there is a proverb that says, what you eat, you become. And by eating, we don't mean only physical eating. We mean anything, any kind of experiences that we take into ourselves and any kind of attachment. What is the way how you earn your money? Do you earn money on a way that it is not really nice, or you fight too much for that, or you are ready to do many negative things in order to get that money, or all these kind of things, or if you are too worried about it? So this is kind of personality you're becoming. What kind of energy do you put in order to get it? If you're very easy with that, you get it, but you're not too attached to it. You're easy with that. You have it and you allow it to go. This is kind of personality you become. You will become that person. If the food that is coming in you is not very happy, but it's rather scared, like, oh, that's the person you become. You see, that's why some people choose to eat different kind of food. Choose to eat food that is easy, not like full of adrenaline, like, you know, there is a fear. No, they choose to actually have some material connection which goes in an easy way. But this is not only a food, this is actually anything that we are attached to. Very often nowadays it's just the money. How do we do that? Is that money happy to be with us? So people sometimes think only about the quantity of money, but not about the quality of it. But this is very important part, because this is something that builds us, build our personality in the next life. Generally, good karma is built if we know how to do with this in a nice way, easily, so that our food is not scared of us, that it does not see us as a predators. We are good with that. Then the next question, but how do we actually create a wealth or money in the next life? What kind of action do we need to perform now in order to get that quality, that abundance or easiness, easy money that comes easily? Whatever is the third house nowadays is becoming the second in the next life. What does it mean? Well, the way of thinking, the way how you think, this is the way how you manifest. So if you think mostly negative thoughts or full of fear and all that, don't expect to have a lot of money in next life. It doesn't go with that, because you will have, with negative thoughts, you have very hard way of manifesting things. If you especially know very well what you do not want, then you manifest things that you do not want, or basically it doesn't go well. It is just like if you're putting all the time negative kind of Saturn in your third house. So what can you expect next time? You will have a negative kind of Saturn in the second house. So this is how you manifest the things. So basically, if you have a way of thinking which is full of optimism, which is basically what you want, you're positive in that, it literally creates the second house of abundance. And that's how you get it. You can even get it now, even in this life, because lives can be integrated. Lives are not so separated as we may be thinking. It depends on the state of consciousness. But if we develop that kind of consciousness that can integrate to things, yes, that's what we get. So the third house creates the second house. And now the next question you may have is how to create that positive way of thinking. What do I need to do to have a good way of thinking? Nowadays, fourth house creates the third house. Fourth house is the state of feeling, of inner gratefulness. Are we grateful enough? So how do we feel in ourselves? We are very close to ourselves, inner state. So that inner state of feeling creates thoughts. Even in this life, it goes like that, but we already have maybe certain planets in the third house, maybe we have the ruler of the third house that actually makes kind of already predetermined way of thinking. But in order to get those qualities, we need to activate the fourth house quality, meaning deeper feeling of inner peace, inner being very close to ourselves, being very grateful. That's the way. Only that kind of satisfaction, inner feelings of gratefulness, which is basically deep kind of satisfaction, will create a very positive, automatically creates very optimistic way of thinking. And this is how we start actually developing very positive chain of karma. How do we get like that positive state of feeling? Let's say if we didn't have a good family, which is a fourth house, meaning how to get a good family, how to be incarnated in a country, in a family that makes us so happy, how to actually get that quality of life. What do we need to do now? Well, the answer is the fifth house nowadays. So the fifth house is the house of love. If we can actually be inspired to love, just to love, with this quality, that whatever we invest positively in someone we love, this is something that basically gives us great family, gives us great inner family, because that person will create out of that love toward the person, whoever that might be, whoever inspires us, we create something very deep, inner peace, which actually represents the very foundation, our family. And that's an important thing. I say our family, our home, our country, even anything that we are very happy being incarnated there. It was created out of love that we gave to someone. So the thing is, are we capable of having permanent love? Well, you will say it depends on how inspired we are. It depends on other people, you would say. Maybe some people inspire you more and then it's easy to love. But how to love if someone is whatever, cheating you or hurting you or whatever? So listen, that's another skill. However, the good question is how to get a very good fifth house. So the fifth house that inspires us to love, that makes us happy in one life. How to make that? What do we need to do in this life to get the good fifth house? The answer is nowadays sixth house. So nowadays sixth house is the house of service. So any kind of service we do, truly we do something totally out of just being happy to serve, being very modest in anything. This is part of what we have. Just one thing, doing things good. We just want to make things good. We just want to help, whatever we do. We do this toward the people sometimes who may need that help. Sometimes it's toward the people, sometimes it's toward the animals. If we can really put a lot of love or support or help to those who are in need, maybe we need to heal them, or the sixth house is nowadays the house of our patients as well, if we have them, or whoever is in need of our service, and we serve them. So this is something that causes the love. It starts creating that very positive effect to our fifth house tomorrow. But it starts from that, actually service. This is a very nice way how we start building our karma in a very positive way. Being very simple in life. Do not actually necessarily just comparing ourselves to other people who are different like this way, but just being happy with whatever we do. Very simple. That's the source of creating love, inspiring love, and anything else. And of course, the sixth house is the house of health. And this is a very simple thing we could say. If we could have a good health, I could be very happy, I could be very satisfied, I could be very simple, nothing more. And this kind of life, if we can have, just like maintaining our good health, and based on that health, we inspire, we start developing love and everything else. But the question is, how can we assure that we get born with a good health? This is sometimes something we inherit. We are born with state of health. Or the sixth house is very basic. And here is the very important key. You see, the sixth house depends very much on the seventh house nowadays, because whatever is nowadays the sixth house, it used to be seventh house before, and whatever is nowadays the seventh house, it is going to become a sixth house tomorrow. So our sixth house is always the reflection of past life relationships that we had, and that's why the relationships that we create now are influencing our health tomorrow. So it is never about the other person. All the other people are just reflection of who we are. And we will see that reflection in the state of our physical health next time. If we are somehow in kind of misunderstanding with someone, something, we should not be too harsh to them. Never. We just, in our feelings, just be okay. We just need to do that. It might be the most difficult task, but it is one of the very, very important. That one creates so many things in our life, because having a good health is a source of all other happiness that we'll have. But we need to get that, and we create that through our relationships. And just think, the sixth house, which corresponds to the sixth sign, the sign of Virgo, is very unique, because this is the sign where not only Mercury is very strong, but Venus is in its fall. And the fall of Venus directly describes the state of physiology that is caused by unhappy relationships. And that's why that house can cause different problems to people. But the cause is in the relationships. That's why I think it's very important for us to understand this wheel of karma, how the things are interconnected, and any action that we perform now is already creating the codes in our next life. And as I said, if we are really establishing more subtle state of consciousness in our life now, we will experience these results even in this life. We do not have to wait another. So this is the way how we actually create our life. But in ordinary cases, yeah, it may take one more life for that to be manifested. But the state of consciousness is the only one that actually defines how soon is that going to be. If we can develop that state of consciousness, which is part of our technology of consciousness, of the way how we develop that, this is the way how we actually create the manifestation even in this life.